My name is Rachel Moore. I'm a cleaning lady in one of those buildings where the floors shine brighter than most people's futures. Funny how people look at us, like the dust on the floor is our fault. Like the blue uniform on my body means my head doesn't think, my soul doesn't feel, that my heart doesn't dream. Working there was never easy. Not because of the broom's weight or the smell of cleaning products that cling to my skin, but because of the laughter, the sideways looks, the mocking smiles. They laughed, as if every laugh was a sentence saying, "You'll never be more than this." And I believed it. For years I believed, until that day. The day a millionaire, one of those arrogant, suit-wearing men, laughed in my face. And seconds later, he regretted it, because that day I showed him who I really was. The sound of the squeegee sliding across the marble floor echoed through the hall. The bright lights reflected off the polished floor, as if the ground itself was a broken mirror. Rachel adjusted the scarf tied around her hair, the blue uniform already stained with cleaning chemicals. Her calloused hands moved automatically, while her mind drifted far from there. She bent down to pick up a crumpled piece of paper near the elevator. That's when she heard his voice. "So no one here speaks French? My God, this is unbelievable." Rachel looked up. There he was, Edward Wallace. The magnate who owned half the building. Tailored suit, shiny watch on his wrist, an expression of boredom mixed with arrogance. "I need these contracts translated today. Do they only hire idiots around here?" he muttered, glaring at the young receptionist, who shrank under the weight of his words. Rachel stood still, the crumpled paper forgotten in her hand. "Excuse me," she murmured, almost not hearing her own voice. "What?" Edward turned slowly, frowning. His eyes scanned Rachel from head to toe, first the scarf on her head, then the bucket beside her. I can help with the translation." Silence hung heavy. Then came the laugh. "You!" He laughed out loud, dry and cruel. "The cleaning lady wants to translate business contracts from French to English. Seriously, is this an internal joke, or is it charity day?" The receptionist looked at Rachel, uncomfortable. But Rachel didn't look away. "Yes, I know French, and Spanish, and Italian." Edward kept staring. His laughter faded slowly. "Prove it." Rachel took a deep breath. She walked over to the reception desk, where the stack of contracts lay open. Her calloused fingers flipped through the pages precisely. The smell of paper mixed with the distant scent of fresh coffee. She began translating out loud. "Clause 1. La société s'engage à..." She paused, looking directly at Edward. "The company agrees to deliver within a maximum period of 60 business days." Edward frowned. "Clause 2, Rachel continued, alternating perfectly between technical French and fluent English. Her voice was firm, steady, as if those contracts were pages of her own story. An unsettling silence filled the space. People started approaching, discreetly. When Rachel finished, she calmly closed the contract. "Any other questions, Mr. Wallace?" The millionaire remained still. His hands trembled slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Where did you study? Europe?" Rachel cut him off. "But life brought me here." He cleared his throat, looking away. "Send the finished translations to my assistant." Rachel stepped back. "I prefer to hand them to you directly. That way I can avoid any more jokes." Edward didn't respond. He simply stepped into the elevator. The doors closed with a metallic sound. Rachel let out a long sigh. Her hands were still trembling. The receptionist finally broke the silence. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" Rachel smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "Because no one ever asked." The sound of the squeegee sliding across the floor filled the hall again, but something inside her had changed, forever. The elevator rose. Inside, Edward Wallace pressed his temples, trying to make sense of what had just happened. A cleaning lady, speaking technical French. His pride hurt more than any contract failure. Rachel's face burned in his mind. Minutes later, in the luxurious top-floor office, Edward snapped his fingers to call his secretary. "Bring that cleaning lady here, now!" Downstairs, Rachel was finishing the last steps when she was approached. "Mr. Wallace wants to speak with you." Rachel hesitated. She wiped her hands on the sides of her jeans under the uniform and went up. The door closed behind her. The office was a cruel contrast. Italian hardwood floors, glass walls, and the woody scent of expensive whiskey. Edward didn't even rise from his swivel chair. "Sit." Rachel stayed standing. "I'd rather stand, sir." He sighed, irritated. "I asked for the translation, but I've reconsidered. I need to make sure you're not a fraud. So, I'll pay you $500 if you can translate something more complex. Legal material." Rachel narrowed her eyes. "Mr. Wallace, I don't work for humiliation or tests." Edward spun his chair, finally looking her directly in the eye. $500 or back to your bucket." Rachel took a deep breath, stepped forward. "And if I refuse?" He gave a faint half-smile. "Your kind never refuses money." Silence. Rachel stepped closer to the desk. The sound of her footsteps echoed like a slow drum. She took the French contract he handed her. "I accept, but not for the money. I accept because you need to learn to stop looking down on people." Edward's gaze wavered, and Rachel began. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade, precise, technical, flawless. With every paragraph she translated, the room seemed to shrink around Edward. She finished, handed the contract back. "The translation is correct. Feel free to check." Edward didn't know what to say. For the first time in a long time, he felt small. How did you learn all this?" Rachel looked out the window. The city below seemed as distant as her past. "I was a university professor, but I lost everything, and no one gave me another chance." Edward turned pale. That hit him. "So, you're a cleaning lady because—" "Survival." Silence. Rachel walked to the door, but before leaving she turned. "If you need more translations, Mr. Wallace, treat me as a professional, not as someone you underestimate." The door closed. Edward remained seated, speechless. For the first time, he felt shame. The next morning, Rachel was sweeping the 27th floor hallway when she noticed something strange. People were watching her. The receptionist gave her a discreet wave. Two lawyers whispered to each other, glancing in her direction. Then, unexpectedly, a manager approached. You're the cleaning lady who speaks French, right?" Rachel stopped sweeping. "Depends. What do you need?" The man laughed awkwardly. "It's just, we've got some internal documents. If you could help us review them, of course. We'd pay you, naturally." Rachel hesitated, but before she could answer, a voice cut through the corridor. "What's going on here?" It was Vanessa Sterling, the head of HR, impeccably made up, stiletto heels scraping the floor, strong perfume filling the air. She always despised Rachel, not for the dirt she cleaned, but for the dignity she carried. "Move along, everyone back to work." The manager retreated like a scolded child. Vanessa glared at Rachel. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but here you're a cleaning lady, nothing more, nothing less." Rachel stood her ground. "Here, I'm the person you never wanted to see." Silence hung heavy. Vanessa pressed her lips together, then gave a cold smile. "You're dismissed for the day. Go home." Rachel felt her stomach twist. "You can't suspend me. I have a contract." "Yes, I can. On grounds of misconduct. Or would you prefer I call security?" Rachel looked around. Everyone looked down, alone. Again. With tears welling in her eyes, she set her broom aside and slowly walked to the elevator. On the 34th floor, Edward Wallace watched everything from behind the glass wall. He didn't know why, but something about it unsettled him deeply. Minutes later, Edward stormed into Vanessa's office. "Why did you suspend Rachel?" Vanessa feigned surprise. "Me? She was disrupting the corporate environment. She's not a threat. She's an opportunity." "Opportunity, Mr. Wallace? She's a cleaning lady. People laughed at her yesterday, and today they want to hire her as a translator. Where's your head?" Edward stared at her. For the first time, Vanessa's words didn't convince him. "She's back tomorrow." Vanessa bit her lip. "As you wish, sir." When he left the office, Vanessa discreetly made a phone call. "It's time we take care of Rachel, for good." It was 5:30 in the morning when Rachel, tired but determined, returned to the building. Steady steps, head held high. She knew she couldn't let them break her. As soon as she stepped into the lobby, she sensed something was wrong. The receptionist, nervous, avoided her gaze. The security guard, who usually greeted her, stood motionless. But it was only when she entered the janitor's closet that she understood. There was a brown envelope on top of the cabinet. She opened it and felt her blood freeze. They were copies of the company's internal documents, confidential contracts, documents that, according to the anonymous letter inside the envelope, she had supposedly stolen to sell. Rachel dropped the envelope. "No, no," she murmured, trembling. At that very moment, the door burst open. Vanessa, flanked by 2 security guards. "Rachel Moore, you are officially suspended until further notice. Theft and breach of confidential information." Rachel tried to speak, but her voice failed. This isn't mine." Vanessa just smiled. "It will be, once the police arrive." Rachel's hands were cuffed. Each click of the metal felt like it pierced her soul. The whole building watched. She, the cleaning lady who dared to rise, now dragged away like a criminal. On the top floor, Edward received the news. For a moment, he believed it. For a moment, the arrogant voice in his mind said, "I told you, she was just a cleaning lady." But something didn't add up. He looked at his desk. The supposedly stolen documents were second-rate copies. Worthless. Rachel had no motive, no need, and her look, when she was handcuffed, it wasn't the look of someone guilty. It was the look of a woman. Betrayed. Edward threw his phone on the desk. "Vanessa," he muttered. "What did you do?" Meanwhile, at the neighborhood police station, Rachel sat alone in the cold room, hands trembling. The officer slowly filled out the report. Motive for the theft. Rachel stared at nothing. Being judged by my uniform. Her eyes filled with silent tears. But inside the pain, something began to grow. A decision. She would not be defeated. The sound of the fan hummed in the police station. Rachel sat motionless, her eyes fixed on the peeling wall, but her mind was burning. It wasn't the first time someone tried to bury her, but it would be the last. Suddenly, the door opened. A lawyer stepped in. "Rachel Moore." She slowly raised her eyes. "Yes, I was sent by Mr. Wallace. You're being released now." Rachel blinked, confused. "What?" Minutes later, outside, the rising sun lit her worn face, but she remained in disbelief. Then he appeared. Edward. Plain white shirt, no suit, disheveled hair. For the first time, human. "Get in the car." Rachel didn't move. "Why?" Edward took a deep breath. "Because I was wrong, and now I'm going to fix it." Silence. She got in. During the drive, the car was silent, until Edward spoke. "I saw the envelope. The documents were worthless. It makes no sense that you stole them. Vanessa set you up." Rachel clenched her hands. "And you? Are you just going to protect her?" He stared at the wheel. "Not anymore." Rachel turned to him. "Why? Out of pity?" Edward pulled the car over to the side of the road. He looked at her directly, eyes sincere, vulnerable. "Because I'm tired of being the kind of man who laughs at other people's pain." Rachel's chest tightened. She hadn't expected to hear that. And what do you want now? I want your help. Rachel frowned. My help? Yes. I want you to work officially with me, not as a cleaner, as a translator and an international advisor. I need someone who speaks the language I never learned, the language of ordinary people. She didn't know how to answer. Do you accept? He pressed. Rachel looked out the window. Tears fell, but they were tears of release. I accept, but only if it's as equals. Edward smiled sincerely. It's a deal. Cut to Vanessa in the building, watching everything from the window. She knew. The war had just begun. Rachel's shoes echoed firmly on the polished floor, but this time it wasn't the sound of a cleaning lady. She wore black dress pants, a simple white blouse, her hair neatly tied up. She carried a black folder in her hands. When she entered the main office, everyone stopped. Their stares were knives. Some pretended not to look, others didn't even try. She felt it. Every judgment, every sigh, every bit of disdain. But she kept walking. She reached Edward's office. He was waiting for her, standing. Ready for your first international meeting? She forced a smile. I've always been ready. I just didn't have an invitation. Edward nodded. Today, you sit at the director's table. Rachel took a deep breath and walked in. The meeting room felt like a courtroom, suits, experienced lawyers, and Vanessa, sitting elegantly but with a lethal stare. Rachel took her seat, not one chair less. The operations chief cleared his throat, uncomfortable. With all due respect, is this a joke, Mr. Wallace? Edward replied firmly. Rachel Moore is now our international consultant, and no one here outranks her. Vanessa laughed discreetly. Rachel stayed silent, but her eyes spoke volumes. The meeting began. Every document in French, Rachel translated precisely. Every technical term she explained patiently. Edward watched and learned, but Vanessa played her final card. Rachel, since you understand contracts so well, translate this one. Rachel took the document, but something felt wrong. The clauses were legal traps, contracts rigged to favor external companies, an internal scam. Rachel realized it and hesitated. Edward noticed the silence. Dudim, what is it? Rachel looked at him. If I translate this, your company loses millions. Someone designed this contract to deceive you. The silence cut the air. Everyone looked at each other. Vanessa forced a smile. And where's the proof? Rachel raised the contract. Right here. Edward slowly stood up. Someone from inside the board tried to sabotage my company. Rachel stared directly at Vanessa. Vanessa didn't look away. But at that moment, Edward understood. And Rachel realized that now he believed her. The meeting is over, said Edward. Vanessa stood up calmly. This isn't over, Rachel Moore, Rachel replied without fear. I know, because now I've started fighting. The building felt different. Rachel's footsteps now echoed as presence. Some employees, once distant, started to greet her discreetly. The manager from the 27th floor stopped her in the hallway. Rachel, if you need anything at all, she smiled. A tired smile, but a genuine one. In his office, Edward was reviewing documents and security footage. I want proof. Who planted the envelope in the janitor's closet? The head of security hesitated. If we find evidence against Vanessa Sterling, are you sure you want to act on it? Edward looked up. I've never been more certain. Elsewhere in the city, Vanessa acted differently. Sitting in a luxurious cafe, she opened her laptop. Rachel Moore. A search revealed the past Rachel tried to forget. An old headline, Professor falsely accused of embezzlement at California University. Vanessa smiled. So, you have a skeleton in your closet, dear. She called the marketing department. Prepare an official statement about our new employee. I want every detail, including the shameful ones." Meanwhile, Rachel was reviewing documents in the small office Edward had given her. Suddenly, he walked in. "Rachel, can I ask you something?" She set the pen down. "Ask. Why did you never tell me what happened in San Diego?" Rachel froze. "How do you—" Edward sat across from her. "I looked it up, but I haven't told anyone. Not yet. I want to hear it from you." Silence. Rachel took a deep breath. "I was a senior professor of linguistics, prestigious university, but a colleague set me up. Embezzlement. I trusted her, and I lost everything." Her eyes filled with tears. "But she kept going. No company wanted to hire me after that, no school, not even as a receptionist. Cleaning was the only job that didn't ask about my past." Edward lowered his head. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just promise me one thing." "What?" Rachel looked straight at him. "Don't let anyone bury me again." Edward extended his hand. "I promise." Rachel shook it, but deep down she knew. The war was about to begin. It was morning when Rachel arrived at the building. But something was different. People whispered. Murmurs slithered through the hallways like snakes. When she stepped into the lobby, she saw it. Posters printed and taped to the walls. Professor or criminal? Rachel Moore, fired from the University of San Diego for fraud. The floor seemed to vanish beneath her feet. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. But she didn't break. She tore down each poster with her own hands. Hurried footsteps echoed behind her. It was Edward. "Rachel, I saw—" "What?" "It was Vanessa, wasn't it?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I can't prove it." Rachel looked at him, tears in her eyes. "So that's it? All over again? Rejection, judgment, humiliation? Who's going to believe me this time?" Silence. Then Edward spoke, calmer. "I will. I believe you." Rachel laughed bitterly. "Just you? One person is enough to start a revolution." Rachel blinked, surprised. Edward took a deep breath. "And I'm tired of watching revolutions from the window. From now on, I'm fighting with you. And the company, your partners, your reputation." He gave a faint smile. "You're worth more than all of that." Rachel felt the ground shake. Then Edward announced, "All hands meeting now, auditorium." Rachel went with him. In the crowded auditorium, Vanessa watched from the front row, confident. Edward stood on the makeshift stage. "Me. Everyone knows who Rachel Moore is by now, right?" Murmurs. "Then know this. She's my new partner in the international division, and anyone who keeps spreading lies about her will be fired, personally." Dead silence. Rachel stood, stunned. Edward continued. "When people judge someone by their past, they forget that the present is still being written, and she is going to help write ours." He extended his hand. Rachel hesitated, but then she stepped onto the stage and took his hand. Did everyone applaud? No, but they respected her. Vanessa bit her lip until it bled. Rachel and Edward side by side, and for the first time, she wasn't alone. Rachel arrived at the office before dawn. She sat in front of the laptop. On the screen, the old headlines about her expulsion from the university still cut like knives. But she knew something was wrong with that story. Edward arrived soon after, bringing coffee. "You didn't sleep, did you?" Rachel shook her head. "I'm going to find out who framed me back then. It wasn't just my colleague, Edward. Someone bigger, more powerful, erased my reputation." He sat beside her. "Then we'll find out who." Hours later, after digging through old court records and university invoices, Rachel froze. "Oh my God! What is it?" Edward leaned in. Rachel stared at the screen. Her tear-filled eyes locked onto the name. The university's investor was Vanessa Sterling's father. Silence. The weight of the revelation fell between them. It was him. Her father funded the false accusations. And now she's following his legacy. Rachel trembled. Edward closed the laptop. You're not running from this anymore. Neither is she. On the 34th floor, Vanessa received a call from her lawyer. Rachel Moore reopened the old case. She's looking for evidence against your father. She stiffened. Prepare everything. If she keeps going, I shall be destroyed, one way or another. Vanessa hung up. She stared at her reflection in the glass, and for the first time, felt fear. Later, Rachel walked along the building's balcony. Edward approached. You know that if you go through with this, you might lose everything again, right? Rachel nodded. I'm not after revenge. I'm after my truth. He smiled, proud. I know, and I'm with you. Rachel took a deep breath. Tomorrow, we hand everything over to the court. Edward placed a hand on her shoulder. Are you ready for the end of the war? She looked at him. No, but I'll fight anyway. The courtroom was packed. Rachel sat in the front row, hands clasped. Edward sat beside her, tense but confident. At the center of the room, Vanessa Sterling stood tall, cold, as if the truth were just another obstacle to manipulate. The judge called the parties. Rachel took a deep breath. Let's end this, she murmured. The hearing began. Rachel stood and spoke. I was accused, judged, and condemned without proof. My only crime was trusting the wrong people. She looked directly at Vanessa. Today, I present the records, the bank accounts of Vanessa Sterling's father, the hidden payments made to the university dean, the smear campaign created to push me out. Vanessa clenched her fists. Rachel continued, For years, they made me believe I was nothing. But today, I choose to believe in the truth. Her lawyer handed the evidence to the judge. Silence. Vanessa tried to intervene. Your Honor, these accusations are baseless. But the judge raised his hand. The documents speak for themselves, Ms. Sterling. Rachel looked at Vanessa. You broke me, Vanessa, but you forgot that broken pieces can cut too. Vanessa finally lowered her head, defeated. Hours later, outside the courthouse, Rachel walked slowly beside Edward. Now what? He asked. Rachel sighed. Now, I start over, not as a cleaner, not as a victim, but as a free woman. Edward smiled. Can I ask you something? Rachel stopped. What? Can I walk beside you from now on? Not as your boss, but as your friend. Or maybe something more, if you'll allow it. Rachel smiled for the first time in a long time. I think I can accept that offer. They kept walking. Side by side, the past was finally behind her. But Rachel's story was just beginning. My name is Rachel Moore. For a long time, I believed that my uniform defined who I was, that my past dictated my future, that the floor I cleaned was the only place I deserved to be. But I was wrong. I discovered that dignity isn't something you wear or buy. I learned that truth may take time, but it always finds its way. And I learned that the deepest scars aren't those others inflict on us. They are the ones we choose to carry ourselves. Today, when I look in the mirror, I no longer see the invisible cleaning lady. I see a woman, a professional, a survivor. If you, on the other side of this screen, feel unseen, that your voice doesn't matter, know this: you are not alone, and you are worth so much more than they think. Believe in your truth and fight for it. If my story touched you, share it. Comment. Let's spread this message, because sometimes all someone needs is to know that there's still hope. Thank you for listening to my story, and for finally seeing me